Sourdough is one of the most fascinating things to make. You're literally growing your own yeast, a living culture that can rise dough right before your eyes. It can seem complicated with all the rules and techniques, but it doesn't have to be. This version keeps it simple with minimal work, minimal rules, and a big payoff. Hi friend, come on in. Sourdough is one of my favorite kitchen projects. It feels like science and art all in one. I love the process of maintaining a stable yeast and bacterial culture that turns into beautiful, flavorful bread. Today, I'll show you how to simplify the whole process. No stretch and folds, no complicated timing, and hardly any kneading. I fed my starter the night before so it is active and bubbly this morning. You'll need about 100 grams for the dough, plus enough to feed for next time. I usually feed 20 grams of starter with 50 grams of water and 65 grams of flour. That gives me plenty for baking and maintenance. If you prefer to bake at night, you can also flip this schedule and feed in the morning to bake in the evening. And if you don't have a starter yet, I linked a video that shows how to make one from scratch with very little waste. In a bowl, combine 100 grams of active starter, 50 grams of sugar, optional but helps with browning, and 300 grams of warm water. Give it a good stir to fully break up the starter. Mine's a little stiffer, so I take a little extra time to dissolve it well. Next, add 500 grams total flour. I use about 50 grams of whole wheat and the rest all-purpose. You can mix and match how you like, just avoid going too heavy on whole wheat since it absorbs more water. Stir until you've got a shaggy dough with no dry spots. Sprinkle on 10 grams of salt, cover, and let it rest for about an hour. This rest, called an auto-leaves, gives the flour time to hydrate and allows the gluten to begin developing. It also makes the dough easier to handle later. After about an hour, it's time to work in that salt. Wet your hands a little to keep the dough from sticking. Dimple and squeeze the dough to distribute the salt. Then knead well for 2 to 4 minutes, just until you no longer feel any salt grains. You can absolutely use a stand mixer for this. Just knead until the dough stretches thin without tearing, or passes the window pane test. By hand, it's enough to just get the salt worked in and the dough smooth. Now I'll clean out my bowl, give it a light coating of oil, and place the rounded dough back inside. Cover it with a damp towel and let it sit on the counter for about 3 hours. My kitchen was 70 degrees Fahrenheit or about 20 Celsius. That's enough for it to start looking puffy. After that, cover tightly and refrigerate for 24 hours. The dough will keep rising a little as it cools down. And that long, slow fermentation develops flavor while keeping the process forgiving. If your kitchen is warmer, shorten the counter time. If it's cooler, you can extend it. You can also adjust the starter amount to fine-tune your timing. The next day, remove the dough from the fridge and let it warm up for about an hour. Cold dough is firm and can tear easily. Allowing it to come up to temperature a little makes it easier to work and reactivates the yeast. Turn the dough out onto a lightly floured surface. For a tighter crumb, press out more gas. For a more open, rustic crumb, handle it gently. I go for a light press and a tight pre-shape. Cover with a damp towel or plastic wrap and rest for 15 minutes. This relaxes the gluten and makes the final shaping smoother. A tight shape will help with oven spring and to maintain the shape better. While the dough rests, flour your Banneton or bowl lined with a towel, using rice flour if you have it. Regular flour, oat flour, or fine cornmeal also work. They help wick moisture and prevent sticking. Now shape the dough. Press it out again and roll it tight. Gently pull and push it against the counter to tighten the surface and seal the seams. Place it seam side up in the Banneton and stitch or pinch together the seam to ensure the dough stays taut. I like to place my Banneton inside a bag puffed with a little air. This helps maintain humidity so the dough doesn't dry out. Let it rise for about an hour at room temperature, just until puffy and the seams have softened. After that, refrigerate again for 24 to 48 hours for the final cold proof. This final proof deepens the flavor and gives you flexibility on when to bake. Seal it well to prevent drying out, which can affect rising, or picking up fridge odors. It doesn't look like it's risen much, but don't worry, the yeast is still active, building flavor and structure. When you're ready to bake, preheat the oven to 450 Fahrenheit or 230 Celsius. Once it's hot, remove the dough from the fridge. Dust the surface with rice flour, turn it out onto parchment or silicone, and add a little more rice flour if needed to define your scoring design. The rice flour is what will help your design pop against the open cuts. For scoring, decorative cuts generally go first, like a wheat sheaf, followed by the functional score, one clean slash down the side to let the bread expand. I did the opposite, and as you can see, it can still work. For the functional score, try to go end to end without stopping so it opens evenly. Don't overthink it. Any score is better than none. Place the dough in your Dutch oven, hot or cold, and place a small splash of water for steam. Cover and bake for 30 minutes. That steam keeps the dough soft just long enough for it to rise before the crust sets, giving you great oven spring. After 30 minutes, reduce to 400 Fahrenheit or 200 Celsius. Remove the lid and bake another 15 to 20 minutes or until the crust is as dark as you'd like it. Mine was perfect at 17 minutes, nicely golden and cooked through. If your loaf browns too much underneath, more than you would like, there are several ways to fix it. Try placing a pizza stone or cookie sheet on the rack below, adding a layer of dry rice or beans under your parchment in the Dutch oven, or using a small rack insert to lift the loaf slightly. Reducing baking temps to 425 Fahrenheit or 220 Celsius covered and 375 Fahrenheit or 190 Celsius uncovered. Or bake in a loaf pan instead, since those generally bake at 375 Fahrenheit or 190 Celsius and brown a little less. Those sourdough rules you see online exist because it's hard to teach how dough should feel or smell through a screen, but you don't need to follow every rule to get great results. Here's how mine turned out: golden brown with a chewy crust, soft interior, and full of flavor. And all told, less than 20 minutes of hands-on time. Most of the magic happens while you wait. This method lets you make amazing sourdough that fits your schedule and your kitchen with less stress and amazing flavor. I hope this shows how simple and satisfying it can be to make your own bread from scratch. The long fermentation adds real depth, great flavor, and those gut-friendly benefits. But honestly, it's just incredibly satisfying to bake something you grew yourself. You'll find a free plus printable recipe linked below and in the pinned comment. If you want more homemade bread recipes, check out the playlist above. This pairs beautifully with my roasted marinara or my spaghetti baked ziti lasagna meal prep. If you love learning how to make things from scratch, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for hanging out with me today.